Brawlhalla just released their new balance preview, which is gonna come out in patch 7.03, and I really been thinking lately about doing some sort of video covering like updates that come to Brawlhalla, because I don't know, that just seemed kind of like a fun idea. However, I don't have a set plan or a concrete idea on how I'm gonna be doing that yet, so hold my hand and let's try this thing the best way that I can do it. First things first, you can go right now to brawlhalla.com/balance preview to see the patch notes, and everything is gonna be here, and I'm gonna be reading them and maybe trying some of the things out and showing them in game so you know which things are gonna be changed. First weapon is gonna be changed is actually Axe. Axe side there is gonna have decreased recovery time on miss from 2 fixed and 26 variable to 1 fixed and 26 variable. That means that you're gonna have one last frame that you're gonna be stuck after you whiff an Axe side there. An Axe neutral wear is gonna increase the stun from 25 to 26. Axe Nair stun increase actually means that Nair is going to be, in my perspective, it's going to be better for team combos, especially side light Nair. And side light Nair is going to mean that you have more time. I mean, it's only one more frame, but you're still going to have more time to adapt to what your opponent is going to do. Either go for a read with the recovery, a ground pound, a side air, whatever that means. And I think that with this extra frame, if someone doesn't have a dodge, you're going to be more consistent to hit Nair into side air. The thing that everyone's been waiting for is the nerfs to battle boots, because battle boots came out very strong. Right out of the gate, you have like many true combos and you have like many options. And I don't think that's the main focus that they should be nerfing. I haven't read this yet, by the way, but I don't think they should be nerfing the amount of true combos that you have, because I always think options are great, and most of the true combos actually come from downline. What I think that battle boots actually deserve is a few things, maybe a nerf to the side air, maybe a little bit of the force. They need to add the eye to the side light, but let's check out what's actually going on. Battle boots neutral light increase time to hit from 5 to 6, so I think that's gonna break a few true combos, I'm not sure. Basically, it's gonna take one more frame now for neutral light to hit. That means that I don't think down light with active input downwards neutral light is gonna be true anymore. Don't quote me on that. But that just means that neutral light is gonna take longer to hit. Battle boots side light increase maximum DI angle. That's the thing that everyone wanted, because they just actually forgot to add DI to battle boots side light. Basically, we went back to 2014 for a few seconds there. Battle boots down light. Okay, this is pretty massive, because as I said, every change to battle boots down light is gonna affect every single true combo they have. Battle boots down light increase the recover time on miss. That means if you miss down light, you're gonna take longer to come out of stun. That's super valuable, because I think every combo starter, it's a combo starter. That means it's gonna generate a lot of damage. So I feel like whenever you have the option to nerf it, you should nerf the recovery time on miss, because that means that you should be hitting that. You're gonna start your combo. If you don't start, you get punished. That's basically a fair trade. And fix the case where the target could be dropped before the final hit, especially when performed with a gravity cancel. I never got that, but it's nice to see that they're fixing bugs. Okay, battle boots side air, another one that I think should get very heavily nerfed, because side air was very strong. So first things first, decrease hit window of the active input version from 15 to 12. So I think basically what is gonna happen is that you're gonna fly less far away. 3 frames, yeah, 3 less active frames while you're flying with the person with the active input version. And I think I like that, because now you're not gonna drag them as much outside of the stage. It's still the strength of the weapon, of course, but it's not gonna be as oppressive, because I personally think that it was even more oppressive than Lance side air and Cannon side air, which are basically designed to do the same thing. Decrease force of the active input version from 90 fixed and 30 variable to 50 fixed and 30 variable. That is a lot of force decrease. So the active input version is gonna have a lot less force behind it. Okay, I see. So basically what they're doing is that they're decreasing the force of the active input version. That means that you're probably gonna be even closer to the opponent after the side air, and it's not gonna be as useful for KO. If you want to KO, you're gonna have to probably use the regular version without holding forward. Decreased stun of the active input version from 17 to 15. Sorry, that is actually good as well, because now I don't think that thing that you could do with just grounded side air with active input version down light side air was a 3-piece true combo, which is a little impressive, and I think that this just breaks that up. Decreased force of the normal version from 54-44 to 55-42. So now it has a little bit more fixed force, so it's always gonna be more force, but it has a little bit less variable. That means that it's not gonna increase as much with the damage that the opponent has, and I think that it's very good, especially because you're going to be using this version for KOs instead of the active input version. And I think this really hammers on that you should be using the different versions of the attack for different things. That's what I think they want with these changes. Battle Boots recovery, decreased force from 50-44 to 50-41. Okay, so Battle Boots is gonna have less knockout power the longer the match goes on, and I really like that, because Battle Boots recovery was killing very early, and it has that blasters kind of mechanic to it, that if you catch the opponent very high up, you just take them to the blast zone before you throw them away, and that is very strong on blasters, so it was pretty strong on Battle Boots, which already has like a lot of things. But when you put into perspective, blasters have basically just downlight recovery as a great KO option, because downlight side air takes a long time to KO, and I think side air and recovery are basically the only reliable kill options that you have. Especially in my case, I really like to do dash jump fast fall side air to catch people grounded if they're spacing well, instead of just going for the regular downlight recovery. It still takes a long time to KO them though. Battle Boots ground pound, reduced threat coverage at the rear and bottom during the held charge. This is actually nice because the Battle Boots actually has the same mechanic as the Gauntlets ground pound, and I personally think Gauntlets ground pound is probably one of the strongest moves in the game. Not only do you have the steer ability, it has a great grounded version if you actually hit the ground. It has the fact that if you dash jump and then you reverse the move, you can choose if you go backwards or forwards, which is interesting because the idea of the Gauntlets ground pound is that you can either go straight down or you can go forwards. You can never go backwards. But if you dash jump and reverse it, you're gonna go backwards naturally because of the momentum of the dash jump, and you can at any point just start going forward as the weapon defines the movement. And since it has the same type of mechanic, I think it's very, very valuable that it's gonna get nerfed in such a way, because especially the threat coverage, because since it's like a Scythe thing, it reminds me of the hitbox of the Scythe ground pound, which is basically a very wide arc. So it's basically gonna bring it closer to the actually hurt box of the attacking player, and also reduce the rear charge. So you're not gonna get clipped by the later frames of the attack, which I really like. Blasters is actually gonna get nerfed as well. I actually heard this. I think I saw this on Instagram. One of my friends sent it to me. Blasters downlight, slightly reduced threat coverage near the bottom and rear of the first shot. That means that downlight, the first shot downlight, is not gonna be as efficient as a GC during the first shot. Again, focus on the first shot, is not gonna be as reliable on the GC, and also that means that probably you're not gonna be able to grab downlight stacked, which I don't mind, because the gameplay of the blasters is basically keeping people away from you. If someone is getting into your dead zones, is getting into your hurt box, you're not spacing blasters well enough. So I don't really mind this nerf, and I really think it's actually a good nerf, because blasters is in a good spot right now, but I don't think it needs any buffs or any major nerfs either. It's basically a very strong weapon, and I think this does a good job of just keeping it at bay, but not like over tweaking it. If they think it's gonna be necessary, they might just tweak it a little bit more, but I still don't think blasters is that great, especially with the fact that Gauntlets is very dominant in the meta lately. Gauntlets has been very strong, and Gauntlets into Blasters is one of the best matchups. So I don't think Blasters need to be that tweaked at all. Bow. Ooh, this is interesting because Bow was also very strong in this patch. Bow's Sidelight decreased damage from 16 to 14. That's 2 damage. That's 2 base damage, by the way. So if you have less strength or more strength, this value is still going to be applied. I suck at math, but I think this is kind of like a 15-ish. Yeah, it's kind of like a 15-ish decreased in damage, which is pretty major if you stop to think about it. And I kind of like it because Bow's ability to generate damage is fascinating. It's insane because you have a lot of control of the stage, and Sidelight is a great starter because if you don't have a dodge, you have Sidelight, Downlight, Nair, or Sidelight, Downlight, there, or Sidelight, Downlight, there. You can basically combo Sidelight into a true combo from Bow, Downlight into basically whatever you want. But I think it's going to be a good nerf because that means you're not going to get constantly oppressed by that falling side air into the read Sidelight. Bow Neutral Wear, decreased threat coverage at the extreme edges of the attack and decrease the acceleration allowed on miss. This is huge, because one of the main threat options that Bow has during neutral game is when the opponent is on the air and Bow is controlling the ground. It's very difficult for the opponent to come back down because you have the downline to control the floor, and if they get too close to you, you either have neutral light or the dash jump into Nair. Since you're not going to have as much acceleration on miss, that means that you're not going to cover as much space, and also since it's going to decrease the threat coverage at the extreme edges of the attack, it also means that Bow is not going to be that annihilating force when you're trying to come back to the ground. And I think this is a good nerf because it's one of the most annoying things. If you're facing a good Bow player, they know how to space the neutral lights and the down lights, and then you're like, what do I do? And then you just get hit by a Nair, and then you're back into the air again. And if you wasted any options coming back down to the stage, you now only have one more jump since they attacked you, and it's gonna be a nightmare to come back again with even less options. So this is major. I think this is probably one of the biggest changes I've seen to Bow in a while, and I think this is gonna be a very major change. Bow Recovery, decreased threat coverage at the extreme edges of the attack and decreased force by 2 variable. That basically means that Bow Recovery is not gonna KO as easily. Kind of big nerf as well when I stop to think about it, because when you stop to think about what are Bow KO options, is Downlight into Recovery and Downlight into Neutral Light. Downlight into Neutral Light takes a long time to KO, and Downlight into Recovery is the most reliable, but it also sends at that 45-ish degree angle. This is a pretty good nerf, and we're not gonna be seeing Bow KOing as early, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be like, what? Wait, that didn't KO? A lot more since I play Zario and Yumiko. Okay, let's see Kano. Kano Neutral Light, decrease recovery time on miss from 3 fixed and 9 variable to 2 fixed. So if you miss Kano Neutral Light, you're gonna have 1 last frame to come out of stun. To be honest, I don't think Kano needs this. I think Kano is pretty normal right now. Like, Kano is a very dominant force when you're facing them in 2v2s. A good Kano player can absolutely carry a 2v2 match. I don't know about 1v1. It's been a while since I've played a lot of 1v1, but that just means that it's gonna be a little harder to punish neutral light with the neutral light. And Kano Sidelight decrease total recovery time on miss from 13 fixed to 12 to 12. So they basically just made so like Kano light attacks, Sidelight and neutral light are a little bit more spammable and a little harder to punish. I'm pretty neutral with this. I'm not gonna say that I like it, because again, I think Kano is fine, but at the same time, I think it's gonna be a little bit more annoying for lower ranked players. They're gonna suffer a little bit more with this one. Gauntlets, this is another major one because Gauntlets have been dominating the meta lately. Let's see what's up. Gauntlets Neutral Light, decreased damage again by 2. Wow, that's major. And angle of knockback is now more vertical. By more vertical, does it mean it knocks up a little bit upwards or downwards? Because vertical can mean either of them. If the angle of knockback is more vertical and it means downwards, it's a lot better. I think it's not going to be as big of a nerf. But if it's a little bit more upwards, this is a big nerf. But in any case, neutral light means it's not going to be as big of a damage dealer now. And this thing here is going to either mean that it's going to be very, very good or very, very bad. Gauntlets Sidelight. Increase recovery time on miss by 3 fixed, 20 variable to 6 fixed and 20 variable. That's a big change. That's 3 frames, whole frames added. And I think it's a good nerf. Because one of the hardest things about dealing with a Gauntlets player is the sidelight spam. Like, don't get me wrong, you can do whatever you want. I don't mind spam. But it's hard to deal with because if they whiffed a sidelight and you're trying to punish, they can just sidelight you again. And now it's not going to be as easy. I don't know if 3 frames is enough for them to fall into the ground to try doing it again, but I still think this is very big and it's a good nerf because that means that I don't think sidelight is going to be as big as a threat as it is right now. And Gauntlet Side Air, decrease hit window of the initial swing from 8 to 7. Increase recovery time on miss from 3 fixed and 21 variable to 4 fixed and 21 variable. So that's a big nerf to Gauntlets. That's 3 nerfs basically. So yeah, Gauntlets is getting very heavily nerfed this patch, and that's why I think they also didn't change blasters that much, because if they nerfed blasters as well, Gauntlets would still dominate them, and I think they want to see where the meta is going to drive us. GreatSword. This one is pretty complicated and it's just one change, so I think it's interesting. Generally, you have like a very big list of changes to GreatSword. GreatSword neutral light finishers. Okay, so all of the neutral light finishers. Angle of knockback is more vertical with a more consistent trajectory for all neutral finishers. So basically, the neutral light finishers are always gonna throw the enemy a little bit more vertically, like more upwards. This can be very good for KOing. Like, I don't know where the angle is right now, but I think it's more than 45 degrees already. So if it's gonna throw even more upwards, it's gonna be better for KOing upwards. So you don't have to rely on the side finishers to KO every time. And I think that's what they want to do. They want to push more different options of the GreatSword for the players, because right now the meta is kind of stale with the GreatSword. And I think even when the GreatSword first came out, like it was either that fucking ginormous whirlwind with 7-8 hits that nobody knew how to dodge out of back then, and then after they did the first set of nerfs, the neutral light into down bridge into side finisher was very oppressive as well. It was killing very early. Increased force from a range of 90 fixed, 47 to 45 variable depending on the bridge, to 90 fixed to 49 variable from all bridge attacks. So they just basically made all of the bridges be more reliable. You don't get more benefits from either bridge, which I kind of like, which gives you more options. And since it's gonna always give the same angle and the same force now for all bridges, it just makes it so that any creativity you can put into the GreatSword is gonna be rewarded. Hammer. Ooh, this one is interesting because I've been playing a lot of Tough lately, and I was even talking to Mate that my hammer I haven't felt my hammer being this solid ever since I used to play Yumiko back then. And it's interesting that my hammer is pretty solid now. Let's see. Hammer Sidelight, increased stun from a range of 25-19 to a range of 26-20. Huh. Sidelight stun increase. I kind of like it, which is going to mean that Sidelight into dash neutral light is probably going to be more reliable. Sidelight into dash jump Sair is probably going to be more reliable as a dodge read option. It's going to be very reliable, but whenever they make changes to stun, I get scared because Cassidy might get broken. So yeah, keep your eyes out for Cassidy. Cassidy might get some like 4-5 through combo piece or whatever. So this is a little bit scary, but I still like it because Hammer was one of the weakest weapons this patch. It was suffering heavily from the nerfs. And I kind of like that they nerfed it for a few patches, and now they're coming back and just boosting back Hammer again. Hammer side air, increased stun from 22 to 25. Okay, definitely now Cassidy's gonna get broken. But it's fine. I like the stun, and the angle of knockback is now slightly more vertical. That means that Hammer KO is gonna be more consistent. Probably is gonna send like more upwards. Again, I don't know what they mean more vertical, because vertical can be upwards and downwards. So if they bring the angle a little bit more upwards, it's gonna be more flat. That means that the hammer is gonna KO a lot more consistently, and that is a pretty good buff as well, because hammer's strongest suit is basically in the KO power, and this is just doubling down on that. However, if this means that it's gonna send even more of a downwards angle, it's also pretty good, because that means that you're gonna set people up for more ledge guards, easier ledge guards, and hammer ledge guard is something that you shouldn't mess with. Forced increased from 58 to 52 fixed and 45 to 44 variable to 60 fixed and 45 to 44 variable. That means that hammer has more fixed force on the side air, probably to counteract this stun. I really like that. The fixed force is gonna be a little bit bigger, so you don't exploit the stun buff. I liked it. And the variable force is gonna be the same. So I don't think this is gonna this is as big. I really don't think this is major, this force increase. I don't know how much of a true statement that is, but I think this is just to counteract the amount of stun. So we're safe. Cassidy might not be that broken. Slightly increased trap coverage near the user. This is huge, because now falling Ser is gonna be a good option again. Ser was pretty weak this past patch, and it was not even that great to use at all. So I really like this. This is very interesting, and I think this is gonna be huge, and it's gonna make it so that it's a lot more useful when you're trying to either float on the opponent, a very heavily grounded opponent, or if you're gonna do dash jump fast fall Ser, it's gonna be very useful as well. And hammer natural wear slightly increased allowed acceleration and maximum speed during the time to hit and hit window. This is actually very huge as well, because now this is incredible, to be honest, because I was just talking about how bow controlled the air pretty easily from the ground, and the nerf to the dash jump is gonna be very major, and this is basically the opposite for the hammer. Hammer also has a good time controlling the air, but it's actually with the hammer neutral air. You dash jump into an air and you cover a big, huge area on top of you, and you basically just try to juggle people for damage. It's pretty interesting. And now that you have more acceleration, not only you're going to be able to do that easier, you're going to cover a bigger area with your dash jump nairs. You're also going to be able to use your nair to come back to stage more efficiently, because back then when you're trying to come back to stage, like I personally always use my recovery early, depending on the weapon. Against Katars, not so much. Weapons that have short range ground pounds, I just use my recovery to contest it. However, weapons that have decent range on the ground pound, like rocket lance, ground pound from the blasters or sword, I never contested them with the recovery. I contested them with nair. However, it was a big risk, because when you're doing the nair and if you miss them, you lost a lot of your momentum and you might not touch the wall, and this is basically a slight fix to that. So I really like this, and it's gonna be a lot harder to ledge guard a hammer now. So this is pretty big buffs to hammer. I think this is gonna bring hammer back into the fray, and I also think that this is gonna make hammer even more popular in doubles. Hammer is gonna come back to doubles, and maybe the reign of rocket lance is gonna die out, and definitely the reign of gauntlets is gonna die out a little bit on doubles. So this is pretty interesting, very refreshing, and it's gonna be fun. Katars were in a pretty good spot, so I don't think they're gonna change it like too much. I mean, they're changing 3 things, but it's not that big. Let's see. Katars neutral light, increase recovery time on miss, so it's gonna be easier to punish Katar neutral light. I like it. Katars Sidelight, decrease recovery time on miss by 2 frames. That's actually pretty big. So it's gonna be easier to punish a whiffed neutral light, harder to punish a sidelight. So they're doubling down on the Katar approach options. I like that, because Katars is a weapon that has a hard time approaching you, but if they do, they can dish out a lot of damage. And so like the neutral light is a decent neutral air option, like not a neutral air. Katar's neutral light is a pretty decent anti-air option, and it also is a good reading option too. However, now if you miss, you're gonna get punished, so maybe not throwing out a neutral light is gonna be better. And Katar's neutral air increased recovery time on miss, so they nerfed the spammability of Katars. But again, 1 frame here, 1 frame here, and they just did 2 frames on the sidelight. So overall, I think Katar is gonna stay in the same place. Some nerfs, some buffs. It's not gonna change too much, I think. Rocket Lance. Okay, Rocket Lance has been pretty strong this patch, and people were being very vocal about it, and I think that it's interesting what they're gonna change. Let's see. Rocket Lance Side Air. Increased recovery time on mist, so it's more punishable. 3 fixed to 5, so 2 more frames. And it's slightly decreased allowed acceleration during the recover time. That means that it's gonna be easy to punish that player that just keeps sarring everywhere. They're not gonna be like going very far away, because one of the hardest things to do against Rocket Lance is when a Rocket player knows how to space their attacks well. Even if they whiffed a side air, it's pretty difficult for you to punish because they just go away while they're sarring. So this is gonna decrease the allow acceleration during the recovery time. That means they're just gonna be a sitting duck for 2 more frames now for you to punish. So huzzah, people who don't like Rocket Lance, you're gonna be able to punish them more. Rocket Lance Down Air, increased recovery time on miss for the aerial version by 2 frames as well. So if they miss the lance down there without touching the ground, they're gonna be 2 frames extra in the stun material time for punishment. So yeah, you're also gonna be able to punish the Rocket Lance down there a lot more consistently, which I think is good. Again, they're nerfing misses, and I think this is like the safest way of you nerfing a weapon, because if you're the type of player that rarely misses attack, this is not going to affect you. But if you're the type of player that likes to control space, you like to put out your hitboxes and be like that threat coverage, you just keep threatening a certain area so people can't approach you, and then when you get that first starter or you get that first hit, you can dish out a lot of damage. This is more a nerf towards that type of player, so it's a very direct buff to a certain type of the player base, and it's gonna be nice. And this one is actually gonna be a more direct nerf to Rocket Lance. It's just gonna make it so that Rocket's hair is a lot more punishable. Orb, it's interesting. Let's see, because Orb was like, I don't think Orb was good, like very good, but it was decent. I was having a pretty good time with Orb, and I think the consistency in Orb is one of the most important things that you need to have. So let's see what they're gonna change, because you need to adapt soon. If your Orb is not consistent, you're gonna get very heavily punished. Orb neutral wear, increase recovery time on miss. Again, on miss, it's interesting. And increase stun. I like this. It's a slight nerf. If you miss the move, which is probably one of my favorite moves in the entire game, Orb Nair, it's as good as Sword Nair in my opinion. I think Sword Nair is still above this because the range and motion of the arc of the sword makes it so that it's like generally a bigger hitbox, but it has basically the same idea. It's basically a juggling tool, a quick touch juggling tool, and Orb Nair doesn't have as much knockback as Sword Nair. So Orb Nair, even though you hit them, it's good for you to follow up right after. You can follow up Orb Nair with another Nair, with recovery, with side air, and now with the increased stun, it means that even though if you miss Orb, it's gonna be easier to punish, it also is more rewarding on hit. If you hit someone with the Orb Nair, it's gonna make it so that you can follow up more consistently, and I absolutely love that. Orb Side Air increase recovery time on miss, so that means that Sarah is gonna be more punishable, and I really like that. Orb Side Air is probably one of the strongest moves in the kit because it has that near grabbing hitbox. It has good and very reliable range on the further end, and it also is like your KO tool, and it's basically just on miss. So maybe falling Saris are not gonna be as reliable, but it's not a big nerf. Scythe is interesting because Scythe is always strong. Scythe is always strong, but it takes a lot of effort. Like some weapons, for example, Hammer now, some weapons like Hammer, you get a lot of reward just for stomping and side airing. For you to get a decent amount of reward, like equivalent to the stomp side air with Scythe, you would need to do something like a downlight, soft downlight into dash upwards, dash sideways, reverse nair into read Sair for you to get something of the same magnitude. So it's pretty... Scythe has always been like this. It's a strong weapon, but it takes effort. So Scythe neutral wear, increase recovery time on miss. So that's 2 more frames that you're gonna be able to punish a with neutral wear. I kind of like it. I don't think Nair was that oppressive, to be honest. Maybe down there, but nope. It's fine. I don't think this is a big nerf. And Scythe side air decreased damage from 15 to 13. This is actually decent. This is a decent nerf. So side air is not gonna deal as much damage. So probably they're gonna nerf. Oh, I see. So since they're nerfing both side air and nair, the whole read with the nair Sair thing after you read one dodge is not gonna be as oppressive. If you miss, you're gonna be able to get away a lot easier and even get punished. And if you get actually hit by the thing, it's gonna take like on the baseline 4 damage from the whole combo. So it's interesting. I think it was 65 on Mordex with 7 attack against a 5 Bodvar. Don't quote me on that. I think it was around 65 damage, and now it's gonna be like 60 if you get the whole read. It's not a huge for the combo itself, but it's a huge nerf overall because that means that every side air that you hit on the match is not gonna be as oppressive. And I think it's what BMG thinks is necessary. I think they think Scythe is a little bit oppressive on the aggressive side, so I think it's a normal and very reliable nerf. Spear is interesting because I think Spear was very oppressive this patch, and in general I think Spear is pretty strong because it's a very consistent weapon. You can always rely on sidelight, downlight, side air if you read the opponent, and that dishes out a lot of damage. The same with Scythe, but Scythe without that combo has a lot of reading potential, but that's it. And Spear has the reading potential, has reliability, has spacing potential, and it also has that amazing combo. So I think it's a pretty interesting thing. If they buff Spear here, from what I've seen, that's not gonna be the case, but if they buff Spear, it would be weird, and if they nerf Spear, I think it's deserved. Spear Downlight, yes, is the thing that we anticipated. Spear Downlight, decreased damage by 2. Again, the double downlight side air is gonna deal 4 less damage. Same idea as this thing, is gonna be a lot less reliable. And Spear side air decreased damage from 18 to 17, so that's 5 less damage on the whole combo. 5 baseline damage, by the way. So I think this is actually nice, because that means that the double downlight combo is not as oppressive. It's still gonna dish out a lot of damage, but not as much as it is used to. And decreased threat coverage at the edges of the neutral air. That means that Nair is not gonna be like a get out of me instantly tool. Like, you still, if someone is stacked with you, you're still gonna have the option of taking them away, but it's not gonna hit further away opponents. And maybe, depending on this might make so that downlight Nair is not true anymore. I'm not sure, depends on how much they decrease. We're gonna see. This might make it so that downlight Nair, people don't use downlight Nair that much, but it might make it so that it's not true depending on how much they decrease, which is interesting. But I like good nerfs to Spear. Like, actually amazing nerfs to Spear. They nerfed exactly what needed to be nerfed without making the weapon become unreliable, which is the basis of the weapon. Sword's highlight, decreased damage from 17 to 15 and increased maximum vertical threat coverage. That means that Sword's highlight is not gonna hit as high. I kind of like that because you can use Sword's highlight as a anti-air option, which is weird. And decreased damage. Great nerf. That means that it's gonna be used more as a approaching tool and less as a whatever tool. Just use when you want to hit people in the air, when people are after you. It was too reliable, and I really like it. It's two very precise nerfs, and I think it's deserved. And Sword down there, increased stun from 15 to 16. This is actually nice because after they made a few nerfs to the angle that down there hit people towards the ground, downlight there follow-up was not as reliable. So I think with this stun, you're gonna have a little bit more time for you to adjust your position to follow up. Either down there into downlight, down there into GC neutral light, down there into side air, and down there into recovery. Whew, that's a big list. That's just how good Sword is. So I don't think like they need too many nerfs or too many buffs. Sword is gonna be the same as it always is. You're just gonna not be as reliant on sidelight, and you're gonna be more reliant on that one there. So that's fine. Okay, let's read the character specific nerfs now, or buffs. Azoth. Azoth sidebow, decreased force during the end of the hit window after the plumes have completely formed from 74 to 65. That's, oh, and also a nerf to the variable. That is a big nerf to the side sig force, which is nice. Like, Azoth side sig bow is one of the most reliable weapons on the kit. Like, speaking from experience, I love playing Azoth. I play Azoth a lot, and a lot. I guess I just got like a front slip there. I play Azoth a lot, and dashing into a reverse side sig is probably one of the things that I do the most when I want to just keep the opponent out of me, especially with bow. And it also combos pretty well with the bow kit in general, since you don't want to let the opponent go back to the ground. So if they're getting low on options, you can just dash into a reverse side sig, you cover a lot of area, and even if they touch the later frames, they would just get KO'd. And that is a pretty big nerf to the force. So we're gonna be seeing a lot less, wow, that KO'd from Azoth side sig, and I kind of like that. However, Azoth also has a lot of other amazing sigs, so I don't think this is gonna just break the character. Azoth is still one of the strongest characters in the game, and people just sleep on him. So yeah, I think this is not enough to break Azoth, and I don't think this is gonna be favorable for people who don't play Azoth at all. They're not gonna be picking him up, but I don't care. Azoth is cool, and I don't think that's gonna be a big difference for him. Cross neutral gauntlets, decreased force again. They decreased the neutral force on the last patch a lot, and they're gonna decrease it again this patch. And I think it's warranted. That, wow, not only fixed but variable as well. This sig is probably one of the most oppressive when it came to the damage department. Like, if you were in early orange, like, for real, you can watch tournament matches, you can play cross and go to the training room, set the bot to like 120, 110, 120, and just hit a neutral sig. You don't need to charge, just hit a neutral sig. You're gonna see how far that enemy bot is gonna be sent if they don't get KO'd, depending on their defense. So this is definitely warranted, and I think I like it. Cross is already pretty strong. It has amazing stats, and taking in consideration the difference between their strength stat and the base defense of many characters, this is not gonna be that huge of a difference, but it's a very well deserved nerf. So I think this is gonna be huge. This is a huge nerf, and I love it. Dusk spear neutral, greatly increased horizontal threat coverage. That means that the attack is a little bit more wide. I really like this because it's a pretty precise sig, and again, Dusk is not that well picked. He's pretty strong right now. His sigs are very, very strong, and I think people just don't play him because of the stats and the weapon combination, which is a little weird. But Dusk is amazing. Like, his side orb can KO just as soon as this guy can, but it's a two-hit thing endeavor, and I think it's deserved, especially on a low attack character and high dex character. And now with the wider spear, like maybe people are gonna pick more Dusk now. It's gonna be interesting to see that is gonna make it hitting the neutral Sig a lot more reliable, and it was already one of the hardest Sigs to hit on his kit, so it's fine. The other one being the down spear, the other Sig that is the one that you shove your spear into the ground and a spear comes out of the ground. That one is actually pretty hard to hit as well, and I think they should rework that one. They should make it look the same as the grabby hand from Grass, the down gauntlets. Like the longer you hold, the longer the spear would travel. That would make it a lot more useful than just hitting the place that you can hit with the downline. Personally, I think it's not that useful of a Sig because I can just use a downline, and in the air I can just use a GC downline because I can combo into recovery to KO upwards or whatever. But that's not about this Sig. I just think it's nice that they're gonna buff the neutral spear, and I really want to see them reworking the down Sig for his spear. Ember was pretty strong this last patch, especially the neutral bow Sig. I wonder if we're gonna see any nerfs to that. Let's see. Yep, first thing, Ember neutral bow, decrease hit window from 11 to 9, decrease threat coverage at the lower front of the attack and at the rear of the attack, decrease force from 65-54 to 65-51. It's gonna KO later. It's gonna not hit as much in front and below and behind. I don't know why this attack hit behind. I guess they wanted to follow the path of the bird, but that was insane. So basically they're trying to make this be what it should be. Basically an anti-air neutral Sig. You guys are not gonna know this, but it's been like a 2-hour gap since I was recording this thing because a lot of things came up. So let's get back to what we were doing. So yeah, as I was saying, Ember neutral bow was very oppressive in many ways. Like it was hitting sidelight, neutral Sig, I think covered most of the dodge options, and it was very oppressive. So I love to see this coming. I really do, because this means that it decreased every single thing that made it oppressive. Now it has less force, so it's gonna KO later. Decrease the threat coverage, so it's not gonna hit everywhere and every single dodge option, and also it decreased the hit window, so it's gonna last longer. Why can I not English sometimes? It's gonna last not as long, so it's gonna be you're gonna be able to dodge out from it a lot easier. So I really like this. And Ember neutral Katars, the crew is recovery time from 23 to 20. I kind of liked this because everyone agreed that Ember neutral Sig on Katars was, I don't want to say useless because it had its use, but it's pretty niche. It was not that useful. I really like this because again, it was not a very useful move, and now it's a lot more usable without you having to get worried to get punished. It's basically the same idea as Katar neutral Sig for Queen Nai, but on Queen Nai I understand the long amount of frames it takes for you to come out of stun, because it's a very strong move. It deals upwards of 40 damage. I don't remember the numbers specifically anymore, but something like 40 damage if you get all of the hitboxes. KOs very early, has a lot of force, a lot of power behind it, so I understand. In the case of Ember, it wasn't a very useful move, so it's very well deserved buffs right here. Okay, let's see Fait. Okay, so Fait down Scythe is actually one of the weakest moves in the game, I feel, because it's basically the same idea as Koji's down Sig on Sword, but a lot weaker. The hitbox is great. The hitbox is delicious hitboxing. However, the fact that it's so slow made it so that it's not very useful. You just tell the person where you're gonna go, and the fact that Fait has to do the whole arcing motion when she gets there, the hitbox wasn't very reliable. So decreasing the minimum charge, making it so that the move's gonna come out faster, it's gonna make it a lot better. So I really do approve of this. However, I think Fait was already a very decently strong character, especially with Scythe and Orb. And taking in consideration the nerfs and buffs to Scythe and Orb, the buffs to Nair and the nerfs to Scythe and the nerfs to Scythe Nair, and I don't remember what was the other thing that they nerfed about Scythe, the damage on Scythe. So yeah, since they nerfed a lot of the things, I guess it's fair that Fait gets another buff, because you gotta remember that every time you nerf the weapons, you're also nerfing the characters that use them. So you're gonna nerf the entirety of Fait twice. It's fair. It's only fair that now it's a great time for her to get a thing. I don't think this is huge. Like, it's gonna change a lot of how Fait is gonna work, but it's a good buff. It's a strong buff, but I don't think it's gonna change how she's perceived by everyone. Kaya was very, very dominant this patch, this last few patches actually, because even I think BCX was riddled with Kayas. And you gotta take in consideration that she has both bow and spear, which were already strong weapons, and I think that both bow and spear got nerfs. So we gotta take into consideration that even though both weapons took nerfs, if they're gonna nerf Kaya even more, that might just like break Kaya's momentum completely. Let's see. Kaya neutral spear decreased force. 2 variable force. It's gonna KO a little bit later. I can vibe with that. It's okay. It's not a huge nerf. Kaya down spear increased time to hit. So you gotta charge down Sig a little bit more before it hits. And increase minimum charge from 36. Oh no. The hitbox is gonna come out a little bit later, and also you're gonna have to charge a little bit more for it to come out. I kind of like this because that Sig is basically a reversal. People were next to you down Sig, and it was killing very early too. So I'm surprised they didn't nerf the force, but the fact that it's gonna be harder to hit is already nice. Kaya neutral bow, one of my favorite moves in the game, but it was very strong. Increase minimum charge from 11 to 13. So that means you're not going to be able to hit as close to Kaya anymore. It's going to take a little bit longer for it to come out. So I guess it changes a little bit how you might use it. Because sometimes even if someone was very much above you, like a 90-degree angle from you, it was still worth it to use this, because especially if you can pivot it or maybe backdash into neutral Sig, it was very good. But now it's gonna be a little more methodical how you have to use. It's gonna be like a 45-ish degree angle or even more. Increase time before the movement begins from 2 to 4, so you're not gonna instantly dash towards people. So this might be the fix to this. So it's gonna hit the same place, but you're gonna have to charge it a little bit more. I like it. It hits the same place, but they nerfed. I like this. BMG really thinks a lot about how things work and how to fix them. So if it's very interesting to me. This is fascinating because I even thought about this. Like if it's gonna charge for more, it's gonna hit a different place. But the next line, the very next line, is already addressing it. So I really like this. Let's see. Lin Fei neutral cannon, increased total recovery time from 19. Okay, so it stopped being a complete light attack. I mean, it's still a light attack on its nature, but if you whiff, now it's easier to punish. It's still a very quick move. It's still a great KO option. It has great coverage. It's basically a sidelight that KOs upwards, and I really like this. I really think this is a good nerf to Lin Fei, especially because Lin Fei is a Dex specialist. So when Katars and Cannon have good Dex synergies, Lin Fei just breaks. The same thing with Cassidy. So I really think that Cassidy is going to be the broken one, and Lin Fei is going to take the back burner for a while. Magyar side hammer, increased threat coverage at the rear and top of the attack. So it hits a little bit higher and behind. It's going to get a little bit closer to the box. I really don't see that much Magyar, so I don't know if this is a good or bad buff. It's definitely a buff. It's going to be easier to hit side hammer, but I don't think... It might be noticeable. We're gonna have to see. Again, I don't play much Magyar, and I don't play against Magyar, so I don't know how good this is. Magyar down hammer, decrease time before movement from 7 to 4. This is huge, and decrease minimum charge. They made Magyar down hammer be a lot faster. So be careful when you're getting ledge guarded by Magyar, because this is huge now. This actually means that it's time for you to wake up, because you're gonna get down hammered to oblivion. And Magyar neutral GreatSword, it's the one that you impale people, right? Increased force. Oh, that's a huge amount of force. The angle that is sent was not the greatest, so I guess this makes sense. It's just gonna KO a little bit earlier. But these are great buffs to Magyar though, so maybe we're gonna see a little bit more Magyar in our games now. Ooh, there's the Mortal Man. Let's see what's up. Mordex side Scythe, decreased force during the end of the hit window after the icicles have completely formed from 72, 57 to 50 fixed, 48 variable. This is huge. This is absolutely huge. So the main swing of the Scythe now with the icicles are gonna have the same force, but the secondary icicles that come out of the first burst are gonna have reduced force, and I really like this. I really like this. I think even Rocket Lance should have this on side air. Cannon should have this on side air. Everything that moves the character a lot and has secondary hits should have reduced force up by the end of the attack. The same with Axe down there. If you pay attention to Axe down there, if you hit them with the first segment of the hitbox, the forward hitbox, and a little bit below Axe, you're gonna send them with a lot of force. But if you hit them with the last bit, the bit that's behind your character, it's gonna have a lot less force. And I think every single move that covers a great area should do this. So I love this. As a person that plays Mordex a lot, me and May, I might even have to adapt this into our combo, because our combo kind of relies this a little bit. I have to space it a little better now, but it's okay. I really like this change. Orion, Yellow Man. Orion Down Spear, decreased maximum damage from 35 to 30. Why did this shit do 35 damage? Jesus Christ, decreased force, thank you. Okay, now that my frustrations are out, let's actually be professional about this. I always thought that Down Sig on Orion is one of the strongest moves in the game. Not only that, it lasts a lot longer than you anticipated to. Orion might already have stopped spinning. You're still gonna get hit by it and get flung very fast. So I really like that they decreased the damage. So they might have decreased the damage by 5. So it's gonna do 25 base damage and 30 with maximum charge. I really like this. And decreased force by 2 variables, so it's not gonna KO as early. This is very good because this move can be very annoying to deal with. Sometimes it just KOs you and you're in orange and you're like, why am I dead? There's the man. Look at this patch notes. Everyone was whining about how strong Tezca was. You know what? Let's skip him for now, since there's like only a few lines for the other guys, and then we can just end on Tezca. Okay, so first things first. Thatch. Thatch neutral blasters decrease the minimum charge from 12 to 11. That's a good buff. I don't think Thatch needs a buff or a nerf. He's pretty decent as he is, but that is interesting. So now Thatch neutral blaster is gonna hit a lot earlier. I don't think that's gonna bring back downlight neutral sig. I don't think so. But still, that's interesting that they made that choice. So it's a slight buff to Thatch, nothing major. Vector. Vector side bow. Movement adjusted for increased threat coverage during the initial step. So Vector is a monster right now, by the way. We did get nerfs to Rocket Lance and bow, so we might not see as many Vectors, but Vector is a monster and people just sleep on it. His SIGs are actually insane, and this bow side SIG, it hits so hard, it kills so early. But it's good to see that they're trying to address one of the problems, is that it doesn't hit very close to Vector. So this SIG might be very strong right now. So everyone, open your eyes towards Vector. Vector might be even stronger right now. So pay attention to this, because this is actually a big buff. And our second to last dude is gonna be Wushang. Wushang side spear, decreased force from 68 fixed to 52 variable to 63 fixed and 50 variable. Decreased both the fixed force and the variable force. That means that this attack is not going to be as oppressive. It's not going to KO as early, especially with the Yang crossover, which is a little harder to anticipate. I actually prefer the hitbox of the demonstration of the hitbox on the Yang's attack. It's easier to visualize what's happening than on Wushang's. But still, this is a huge nerf, because Wushang SIGs kill very early, and this is one of them that I think needed a big nerf, and here's the nerf. It's not gonna KO as early. It might take like 20 or 30 more damage to KO with this amount of force. Maybe not that much, but yeah, 10 to 15 more damage more to KO, and I do really like this. Okay, and last but not least, let's do the big green man, the luchador, the dude that just came out and everyone is annoyed at him. Tezca neutral gauntlets. This is the one that you grab people and then you spin down with them and then you blast them on the floor, or you throw them downwards if you use on the air. Decreased force of the aerial version from 50-33 to 50-20. So this move is not gonna do as much force when people are more damaged, and I really do like that, especially the aerial version, which you're gonna hit people off stage and just gonna yeet them outside of the kill zone. That's not nice. Decreased stun of the aerial version from 22 to 18, also nice. The opponent is gonna come back to the neutral game a lot sooner and gonna be able to punish, retaliate, go back to neutral. This is a good nerf. Increased total recovery time on miss from 24 to 26. Don't throw this move out without intention to hit, because now it's annoying. Change force of the ground explosion that can strike nearby players from... Whoa, this is interesting. Oh, I see. This is actually huge. So, before it was 50 fixed force and 40 variable. So, if you got very damaged, you could actually get KO'd by this. You could get KO'd by the strike that struck the nearby players. However, now it has a lot of force, base force. However, it doesn't have a lot of variable force. So, you're not going to be seeing this move KO the people that you hit them with that frequently anymore. I really like this because I think it should be just like a stun. It's an interesting mechanic that you use one guy to hit another. It's kind of annoying because sometimes your partner is getting grabbed by that SIG and you can't really cancel Tezca because you can't really attack because there's a hitbox there. But it's still an interesting mechanic. It adds more dynamics and it's very unique to Tezca. And now that the variable force is not as huge, you don't have to worry about you getting KO'd when you try to have a partner, which I like. Tezca side gauntlets, which is the one where you grab the player and then you spin them around and you can choose to throw them forwards or backwards. Changed force of the spin that can strike nearby players. Same idea. You're not going to be KOing people with a lot of force just by hitting one dude into another dude. Really like this. Tezca neutral battle boots. Fixed case where the target could be dropped before the final hit. Never seen this happen, to be honest. So, yeah. And they're not gonna nerf, really, they're not gonna nerf the neutral boots. I think the neutral boots is one of the strongest. I mean, it's not as strong. It's basically like a Zuri neutral SIG in that aspect, because if you hit the opponent and then they bounce off the ground, they don't have that much force. They lose most of their force. But if you get them and they just keep going down, they don't hit anything, they get spiked pretty harshly. So, now that I think about it, it's fair. It's not that hard. Otherwise, they're gonna have to nerf Azuri's neutral SIG as well, and I don't think that's the case. Tezca side boots. Increase total recovery time from 20 to 23. So if you miss, if you hit or miss, you're gonna be stuck in animations for longer. And I really like that because I feel that move was very oppressive. I still get hit by this because it's hard to react to Tezca SIGs because I haven't gotten used to them yet. I played Tezca until level 10, I think, to get a hang of it, but I still get them mixed up. I still mixed up the neutral SIG with the side SIG, and when he's just doing the animation with both of his hands forward, I don't really know what's happening, and it's a little scary. And Tezca down boots, which is the one that you grab the dude and then you can do that spinning thing where you drop him on the floor, or you can throw them to the other side. Decreased force of the aerial version from 48-33 to 50-20. Again, same idea as this one. Same idea. Basically the same things, same values as well. No? Yeah, same values. So that's interesting. And charge force of the ground version explosion can strike blah blah blah. Same idea. You're not gonna be KO'd as easily by the secondary hit. I expected more, but Tezca did get lots of nerfs. The secondary explosions from the attacks are now nerfed. The neutral gauntlets has last stun, more recovery time, and let me see what else. Tezca side boots has more recovery time, and the aerial version also has less force. So it is a pretty big list, but it's not as striking as anticipated, to be honest. In any case, that was it. That's the patch notes, and I really like this. As I told you guys already, I don't really understand if this is an interesting format. I personally love doing this and just reading the patch, not only because I educate myself on what's coming ahead, and I also can share that with other people, and I think it's pretty fun just sitting here and reading a little bit of the things. And this is patch 703, which is gonna come soon. It's the next patch, so these changes are not here yet. They're gonna be coming next patch, and I'm looking forward to this because I do agree with most of the things, and I think I did a pretty good job at explaining why I like some things about each and every one of the changes. In any case, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. This is a graph of how many people have subscribed. That's not really a good graph if you ask me. So yeah, if you want to help me out, please do drop a subscribe. I'm gonna do a little bit more Brawlhalla content, so if you're interested in that, there's always gonna be this here. And if you're interested in practicing for a complete run blindfolded of Super Mario World, so if you want to catch me live, a video of that's gonna come soon. I think I'm gonna post in 3 segments. So if you want to see that, it's gonna come soon. In any case, thank you guys very much for watching. Kisses, doodles, and I'll see you guys next time.